Welcome to Twisted Tales.
Twisted Tales, hell, blood and bones and unknown trails. Twisted Tales, hell, who got teeth that drags their nails? Urban riding, back road sins, dead men talking through the wind. Cursed objects kill a law. Once you hear it, you want more. No fairy dust.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Twisted Tales on Wicked Wednesdays here on the All Access Network. I am Jeremy, and I'm bringing to you a man this evening. He is an actor, he is a stuntman, he is an author, and he is a great, great guy. I'd like to introduce to you Mr. William Perry. Come on in.
Hey!
Good evening, sir. How are you today?
How's it going, Mr. Cotter?
Hey, not too bad, sir. You know, it's a little warm up here in Massachusetts, but hey, it is what it is.
Massachusetts?
Yeah.
Ooh, I didn't realize you were in the South.
I know. It feels like it sometimes.
South Massachusetts, Boston.
Hey, you know.
Oh, thanks for having me in here. It's good to be here.
Yeah, you know, this is the only place you can get all 4 seasons in one day. I've seen it happen before.
We always say I'm out in California, we only get 2 seasons, summer and fire, and they overlap.
Oh, dear God. As long as it's not earthquakes, I guess that's a good thing, too. Huh?
Now, it's funny. Everybody talks about earthquakes in California. It's like we get an earthquake about every 100 years. My friends in Texas get flooded every 3 weeks. They're like, oh, I never move to California, all those earthquakes. I'm like, you guys have every other piece of nature that tries to kill you. You got fires, you got droughts, you got, crickets. I mean, you got floods, everything's trying to kill you. Out here, we only got one thing, and it tries about every 100 years. So we're pretty good.
That's pretty crazy. So just to get things started, I mean, I'm sure that a lot of people know who you are, but those who don't, give us a little background about yourself. Like, how did you get started in the stunt work, actually?
Stunt work, yeah. It was about a million years ago. I wanted to be an actor, and I was a decent-looking kid at the time, and I'm pretty strong actor, did a lot of schooling, and I'm out there trying to get parts like all the other actors. And a good friend of mine, this guy named Tony Caesar, and Tony was Wes Craven's stunt coordinator for 18 films. Wow. And he called me and he said, hey, do you want to do a stunt? And I was like, I'm not really a stunt man. And he's like, you're just going to be doubling this kid. And the kid was my height, my weight. It was, just this looked just like me, because I was about 25, 26 years old. I looked like I was about 13. I got carded until I was 40. And so he said, yeah, I'm sure. What the heck? It's just one shot. And so we did this little car stunt for Wes Craven on a Disney show, if you can imagine. Really? Wes Craven actually did a lot of television that wasn't really promoted as being a Wes Craven thing, because they didn't want everybody to think he was making horror movies on TV. Yeah. And after it, I was like, that was pretty easy and fun and lucrative. And he's like, there's not a lot of stunt guys your height and your weight. And there's a lot of kids. There's a lot of movies right now that have kids in them. And you could be a double for a lot of these kids. And I'm like, well, what do I have to know how to do? And he's like, are you an athlete anyway? I'm like, well, I was a martial artist for probably 10 years, motorcycles, mountain bikes, and he's like, yeah, that's a start. And the cool thing was I didn't have to audition anymore. Somebody would just call me up and say, can you work on Wednesday? Like, yeah. Okay, we'll see you then. Like, that's it. I just have the job. And I was like, yeah. And the work was fun. We joke that if you tell a girl in Hollywood, hey, I'm a stuntman, they go, oh. And you say, I'm an actor. They go, really? What restaurant? So, wow. So it was there was like a lot of street cred available, for a stunt guy. And because of my height and my weight, they would call me a lot. I mean, my friends had been in the business for years, and they're working half as much as me. just because they're all 5'10", 190 pounds, good shape, where I'm this skinny little guy that looks like a 14-year-old girl. And they were making horror movies. I did 3 of the Nightmare on Elm Streets, just one after the next to the next, because it's teenagers. And I had the teenager physique. So they weren't allowing the actors to do their own stunts for the most part, which was a good thing. And so they would just call me, "You want to work?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I still wanted to be in the acting thing, but it's a tough crossover. So after a while, I would get acting parts for stuntmen that can act, instead of like I wasn't getting the auditions for the big roles anymore. I was just getting, stuff where they were like, "Yeah, we're going to need to get somebody thrown out of a car. Can you get thrown out of a car? Yeah. Can you say something just before you get thrown out?" It's like, "I'll take it." So yeah, kind of right place, right time, and just like to the right circumstance. Like, who knew? I never thought of myself as being that much of a tough guy, but it was a whole different career choice. But I did it for about 12 years.
That's amazing, and I was looking at the list of films, and I definitely want to get in depth on some of these with you, because they are honestly some of my favorite movies of all times. Obviously, Dream Warriors, Nightmare on Elm Street 3, the whole Freddy. I'm a huge Freddy Krueger guy. Obviously, I think I saw your Tumblr. Is it the one you're drinking out of? Is a Nightmare on Elm Street?
Well, then you'll like this, baby. Ooh.
That is a nice glow. I like that.
Isn't that beautiful? A guy that makes them for Robert Englund made this for me, just as a thing to bring with me when I do conventions and stuff. But it's one of those things where when I did those movies, I was a little sad, actually, because I thought nobody's ever going to remember these movies. These are kind of a one and done. You see it once, you throw it away like a Kleenex,
Yeah.
And who knew, 35, 40 years later, that people would be talking about these films and interested in the people that made them. And so it was very, very surprising when I made them back then. People were saying, "Well, what makes you want to be in horror films?" I'm like, "Nothing. It's the only work that's out there." And here and there, I ended up getting some other things that were not horror. Right. But for the most part, we were dicing up teenagers like sushi back in the 80s and 90s. So they needed somebody to throw out of a car or throw off a building or light on fire. I'm your boy.
So when you did Nightmare 3 Dream Warriors, who were you stunt double for?
I was stunt doubling for a guy named Ira Hayden. And okay. I doubled Ira for another film. One of the things about stunts is if you find an actor that you're a good double for, you try to cling to him like a remora, because if they're working, you're working. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up working on a movie called Elvira, Mistress of the Dark with Ira.
Get into that one. Yes, that's like my wife's all-time favorite movie.
Yeah, and just couldn't love her more. But it was kind of one of those strange kind of things where, I go in for the audition. Or not the audition, but to meet Wes, who he just didn't remember me. But I went in and he looks at me and he looks at Ira. Good. That's it. And I said, "What are we doing?" He said, "You'll find out," which was always kind of the thing where you're like, "Could you please give me some indication of what I'm getting myself into?" Right. And when we did it, it was a much longer scene than I thought. I mean, it's only maybe a minute or so in the film, but they chased me around with that wheelchair on a four-wheel like ATV. Yeah. They had the chairs mounted on the front. There's a camera in the middle of it, and then they chased me all over the place. And then they pulled that chair with a Volkswagen engine tied to a cable. And so they would go, and they get that thing going. They'd hit a button, and that cable would start wrapping up, and that pulls that wheelchair. And I just got to run. Just run and don't get your legs caught in the wires, because if you do, it'll cut your leg right off. Just go right through your skin. And yeah. I had forgotten so much about this, it's such a long time ago. And somebody I met somewhere said, "Have you ever seen the making of?" I'm like, I don't know if they're being a making of. And so I'm watching this, and there's 20 minutes of video just on making that scene. And it reminded me of all these different things that we did and all the different shots. And in fact, there's a scene where Robert is drinking a beer, no makeup, because he was so far in the back in this shot, you couldn't see it. And so people would ask, did you ever spend much time talking to Robert? And I said, I don't really even think I ever really had a real conversation with him. And I watched this video, and there he and I are, and he's having a beer, and we're just chatting, having a nice time. And I'm like, now that you remind me, now that I see it, I remember it. Yeah. But it's 35 years ago, 36 years ago. So all that stuff back then it's very, it's fun, because I at the time I just didn't really commit so much of it to memory for long term, because I just really didn't imagine people would be interested this long, and it's lovely. I mean, somebody tells you they really appreciated your work in a film, and it's like, oh, that's everything I wanted. When I was a kid, I just wanted somebody to see my work, right. And here we are 35 years later, I'm talking to you. We're talking about Nightmare on Elm Street.
It is cool. And being a horror aficionado like I am, and Dream Warriors is my favorite. That one and the very first one are my two favorite Nightmare on Elm Street movies. I mean, I get that a lot. Even the ones that some people take a little flack for, like I hate to say, like 5 and 6 are not quite as strong as the first 4. Yeah. But
I thought I liked Freddy when he was scary, when it wasn't all quick, quippy one-liners, So even I was in 6, and right. just in the opening of it, and I went to see it in the theater, and of course I didn't know that he was going to be, the Wicked Witch of the West flying by on a, and so when I saw it, I was like, that's fun, but it's not scary. If I'm going to be in a scary movie, I want it to scare the piss out of me. I want to be, I just saw Obsession with my son the other night, and that is a scary movie. That messes with your head. And that I like that kind of stuff more. So when I got a chance to do, some of these other horror films where they were really more horror, there's a lot of glee to knowing that somebody's going to be sitting in their chair going, "Oh my God!" And I kind of like that aspect of it.
Yeah, I do agree. The only reason I was working on the Nightmare series with you first is because Freddy and the whole entire line, it's so iconic, and the one constant is that Robert gets funnier and funnier in all the movies. And I love all of them. Every single one that he's done, I love all of them. And you said you were in the beginning sequences of
And just in 6, there's the kid's in it, of course, having a nightmare, and he's in a plane, and the plane drops out, and then he's in a house, and it's kind of like the opening of Wizard of Oz, where the house is spinning, and he looks out the window and he sees Freddy, and he says, "I'll get you and your little soul too," and the house lands in the middle of Elm Street, and the kid falls out the window when they land, and he hits the ground, and he stands up, and he runs to Freddy's door. Well, when we did that, it was separate days. So one day I'm getting thrown out the window, which was a kind of a nightmare in itself. And then the next scene is I'm coming out of the window and I hit the ground. And what happened was I hit the ground and then I roll out of the way, and then the kid stands up, Sean Greenblatt. And it was really cold. It was like 20 degrees in California, which is, very, very rare. And we are at the actual house down in Los Angeles, and it's real concrete or asphalt out there, and it's cold, and the kid is wearing a skin tight white t-shirt and skinny jeans.
Oh gosh.
Like, what do we do for pads? And they're like, just roll. Like, oh my God. So I got to jump off a 7-foot ladder and do dive rolls onto asphalt.
Oh God.
In the middle of the night, in the freezing cold. Yeah. It's somehow it's just harder. It's like ice, just seems like there's just no give at all. Yeah. And we had to do it time and time again because it was a really complicated shot. They wanted to, take the camera and follow the kid and, be right behind him. So you watch him going into the house. Right. And we had done it about 3 or 4 times. And I'm looking over to the stunt coordinator and he's like, "You okay?" I'm like, "No. Not okay." And he looks at the director and says, "Hey man, we gotta get this right." And he's like, "Why?" He's like, "Because that hurts." He's like, "He's a stuntman." It's like, doesn't mean he doesn't feel pain. Like, thank you. And He said, and every one we do from now on costs you $500.
Nice.
No. And it's like, hey man, is it my fault that we're doing this for the 5th, 6th, 7th time?
Right.
It wasn't my fault. I was hitting the ground. Gravity does the work for me, but you have to land in the same spot. The idea when people think about being a stunt person, they go, oh, I could do that. It's like, it's not about being tough. It's about being, it's about repetition, perfect repetition every time. Did doing any stunts hurt your body over time? Oh, I'm only 14. Look what it's done to me. Yes, it does actually. I have a lot of arthritis, and doing stunts doesn't cause arthritis, but it does make it worse. Because when you've broken bones, your nose, your fingers, your shoulders, hips, ribs, whatever, they don't heal the same way. And arthritis really tends to attack those places where your joints didn't heal well. And the 7 concussions. Did I say 7 concussions?
No, you did not.
Oh, no, I've had 7 concussions.
Wow.
But yeah, there's a little beating taken there. So anyway, after all that was said and done, we did this stunt over and over and over. And you have to be able to hit that same point. Well, I'm diving off this ladder and I'm looking down and my shoulder is all but separated. And they're like, can you go again? Like, yeah, we can go again. I'm not happy.
Nope.
But $500, back in 1987 money, there's a lot more than it is now even. And so I get home and my wife looks at me and she's like, oh my God. I said, honey, it's fine. This is, it's the work. It's what we do. If I was a football player, you'd say, hey, you're playing football. What do you expect?
Right.
And she says, but this is too much. You're really hurt. And I was like, I'll be fine. And she said, this is, we have to tell them. And I was like, no, you never tell. You never tell anybody that you're hurt because they want to know you're durable. And because most of the stunt was in my power, how we did it and all that was on me. And so that's what it was. And she said, well, I don't think this is right. I said, I made $8,000 tonight. She goes, we're getting a new couch.
Nice.
Yeah, that's how much my shoulder meant to her. But as as you do these things, people say, yeah, I could do that. It's like, yeah, it's about removing all the variables that you can. If there's if I had said, if I have to hang by a rope, I want to know it's my hand. I don't want to know that there's somebody else hanging on to me because what if he screws up? I'm just as dead. But if it was my hand and I made the mistake, somehow anything that happened seems like it would be like, well, yeah, but that was my own fault. I don't want to have my, death or maiming or injury being somebody else's fault. I'd rather it was mine somehow. I'm not sure why I put that distinction there. But that was kind of the way it was at the time. You just, you do what you're told to do. And that whole series, again, I've thought of it as, kind of nobody's ever going to remember these things. And now I'm friends with a lot of the folks. In fact, we did a convention in Kentucky last year in October. And it was the largest gathering of Nightmare on Elm Street cast members ever. I think there was 22 of us. And it was just great because I hadn't seen many of these people since, and it's like, oh my God, I saw Brooke Thies, who was in Nightmare 4, just, gorgeous. And I'm like, you don't still have cockroach arms, right? Before we hug, let me see the arms. Because those cockroaches are cockroaches, man. Can't do it.
Oh, that scene. Oh, God. No, I know. Oh, my. I almost forgot about that scene with the roach.
Oh, still messes with me to this day. And she's a good friend. She lives not far from me. And we see each other here and there at conventions and things. And she will always, she just knows I have a problem with bugs, number one. And she'll go, hey, Bill, it's like, don't even. I can't even watch the film. She asked me to edit a piece of film for her for a show that she was doing. I said, not the cockroach scene. I can't do it. I just, I know. And when you watch movies get made, it's like watching paint dry. It's slow. It's tedious. It's not nearly as much fun as it looks like because everything just has to be done so slowly. And you normally, since you know how it's done, it's like knowing the magic trick kind of takes some of the magic away. But sometimes the practical special effects, the thing where she's literally in the cockroach house and she does a push up and watching that was like, okay, I'm done. I'm going to be in my trailer. You call me when all that gooey, nasty, cockroachy stuff is done.
That's amazing. It's really cool that you actually got a chance to be. I like the tumbler, by the way, that you got there. That's definitely a Freddy Krueger Nightmare on Elm Street tumbler you're drinking out of. I like that. That's really cool. So, another movie that I was talking to you about on the side that big fan of, Monster Squad, which is near and dear to me and my wife's heart. Can you tell the people what role that you actually helped do the double stunt?
Yeah, I'm terrible about this. We talked about this a week ago when you did the invitation. I still can't. I think his name was Ryan.
Rudy.
Sorry, that's how bad I am. Yeah, it's funny because again, they brought me out. There was almost all kids, and there's just very few people that are that height and weight. I'm also an archery fan, and I teach archery, so it was kind of one of those things where it's like, do you know how to shoot a bow? It's like, yeah, of course I do. And they're like, oh, you're our boy. But most of what they asked me to do was stuff that wasn't so much what I would call a stunt as just being protective of the kids. So at the end, there's the big wind scene, and the places, there's the whole torrential, I guess, getting him sucked into the vortex back into the past or whatever that was. Yeah. And they had wind machines and they had debris going all over. And these were, all these kids were, anywhere from maybe 10 years old up to about 16. And so they're not allowed to do anything. And yes, the Wolfman does have nards.
That's great.
That's one of those things we all suffer from. But yeah, so when we were doing that, and I remember thinking, this is so fun because they were going back to the old Universal monsters. They had Dracula, the werewolf, they had the creature from the Black Lagoon and Frankenstein. And I just really thought it was fun. Now I refer it as entry level. It's like horror film grooming for little kids. It's like, start with this. If that doesn't freak you out too bad, then we're going to move up. Eventually you'll get to chainsaw, but not yet. We're not going that far. We're going to work our way up. We'll get Lost Boys in the middle because that's not so bad. So it was just, it was fun because I remember as a kid watching all the old, Dracula movies and really enjoying them. And to think that I was going to be part of a new film that was sort of bringing Dracula back into modern times. Yeah, that doesn't suck. As a horror movie fan, you're like, okay, I got to be part of something very different and new, yet, referencing these old characters that everybody knows and loves.
It became an old school classic too, because people are like, "What's Monster Squad?" And then anytime I tell somebody, "Go check it out," and they're like, "Wow!" And now it becomes part of their ritual every year, like it's become our ritual.
Yeah. It's like watching Charlie Brown Christmas. You got to watch it. If you've got kids, you got to watch Monster Squad. Yeah, it's there's a handful of those that are out there that are just those ones that people just watch every year, and it's weird to see them. There was a time we were flipping channels as one does, and I saw 3 of my movies playing one to the next.
That's awesome.
Because it was coming around Halloween, but then we were also moving into the holiday season. So I had Predator 2, Nightmare on Elm Street, and Home Alone. My wife's like, "Hey, you're going to make some money tonight." Like, yeah, it's not much. There's some old residual checks will dangle in there at some point. But yeah, it's fun to be able to just know that these things that I did so many years ago are still enjoyed. I mean, and really enjoyed.
Right.
One of my favorite things to do at conventions is to have somebody who's like just a diehard Nightmare 3 fan or whatever, and tell them a story they could never have heard anyplace else, and give them some little nugget to attach to that movie. Because I'll get emails 2 weeks later saying, "We watched the movie again, and that thing you told me about, we all watched it together. We're all in the same room, and we all screamed when we saw that part come up because I talked to the guy that did the thing." And that's really neat because it's like now they've got a new attachment, a new piece of information about the film that helps them to enjoy it again.
Right.
And I just love that there are movies. I mean, I got a half a dozen movies that I'll watch. If they come, like Groundhog Day comes on, 2 minutes from the beginning, 2 minutes from the end, I'm watching it. I'm going to sit down. I'm just going to stop whatever I was doing. We're watching this until it's over.
Oh yeah.
And there's those movies that you just really have an attachment to. And I'm just, amazed and pleased at how many people are, feel that way about some of the movies I've been in.
Yeah, I agree. And another one that I definitely wanted to bring up because it's definitely a classic, especially in my house. Elvira, Mistress of the Dark. Now,
That's just love Cassandra to death. She would never remember this. And Ira actually is doing a show someplace back east where they're doing an Elvira Mistress of the Dark reunion. I'm like, is this working? Yeah, come on, guys, where's the call? But we were doing a thing. We were supposed to reach up and we're looking through the window to see if we can catch Elvira while she's changing.
right.
And they've got sprinklers pouring down on us. We're at Warner Brothers Studios. There's cold water and it's nighttime and they're pouring water on us. And the guy I'm supposed to go look up and go, and I fall back. And one of the other guys catches me. Supposed to catch me. He really needed to catch me because we're up, 12 feet and there is a pad behind me, but it's a little bit away because we needed to be able to fall back to it. Well, he just misses me and I drop straight down and I catch a windowsill from the first floor window in my ribs.
Oh, no.
And it hurt. And I knew something was broke. And my my wife just happens to be, first time she's ever come to set, she's watching this and she looks over at me and she's like, "You all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course I am." Yeah. And so I climb back up and I'm like, please don't miss me again. That really hurt. And he's like, "Oh man, I'm so sorry." So I climb up again. We do the scene again. He goes to grab me and it's just too cold. I weigh too much and he just can't get a hold of me. And I fall again and I hit the windowsill again.
Oh.
And I get up to the top. We go to reset one more time. And Cassandra leans out the window and she said, "Are you falling each time that happens?" And I said, "Yeah." And she goes, "Are you okay?" I said, "I'm fine." She goes, "You don't look fine." I said, No, it's good. We'll figure it out. And she goes, No. And she stopped everything. And she said, they can't keep dropping him. Okay. He's getting hurt and he's not saying anything. And I was like, and they stopped everything and they made it where the guy who catches me has actually got a wire that runs through his sleeve, down the other sleeve, down to his hand to a harness that they put on me to keep him. So now there's no way he can drop me. He can let go. I'm still going to dangle, which is fine. And then we just, grab onto me. And she totally saved me that night. They would have just kept doing it and kept dropping me until they finally just decided not to get the shot. And there's nothing I could do. I'm just dead weight. I couldn't do anything to help the guy. Otherwise it would have looked like I was doing something to help him. Right. And Sandra just, she just took pity on this poor guy dangling from the window. And she's so funny and so much fun. And just like I said, I just went out of her way. I saw her at a show and I was going to say hi to her, but she had a line like 2 hours long and I didn't want to interrupt her, just to tell her, "Hey, thanks." I hadn't seen her since then. And just funny. I mean, you come in the morning at 6 a.m. and there's Cassandra's, wagon, they call them honey wagons. That's her dressing room over there. And there is blistering heavy metal coming out. There's, she's got those loud rock and roll music. Everybody else is just trying to get their coffee and, a donut. And she's already, in makeup, music blaring through the place, trying to get the energy up for doing what she wants to do. And just like one of those things where I remember that movie so fondly, just because it was like, I remember Elvira. I mean, hey, I was a red-blooded American man, or young man at the time. I knew who Elvira was.
Oh, yes.
And I got to do, we did another scene where we fall through the ceiling as we're trying to rescue her. Yeah. And that's where I got my nose broke. Got a rib broke and a nose broke on the same show. And both shots are actually, the shot of me breaking my nose is actually in the film.
Oh, really?
They used it. Yeah. We fall through the ceiling and they put just a little movie magic for you here. They, to make the floor softer, because we fall about 10 feet and there's like 5 of us or 6 of us all falling through the ceiling at the same time. So as they land, they take a big piece or a couple of big pieces of plywood and they put styrofoam cups underneath, a lot of them. And so what happens is as you land, the cups crush, and because there's so much air pressure, it actually makes it a softer landing.
Nice.
Pretty sweet, right? Unless you only weigh 120 pounds. And my knees bounced up and got me in the face and just cleaned me out. I was like, oh, that's broken. So I'm like this, and they're like, Bill, you okay? I said, yeah, I got some sand in my eye. I'm going to be back. I'm going to go to the restroom real quick and wash this out. And my nose is pretty much over here. And I'm like, oh, that doesn't look good. Fortunately, we got the shot in one. And I just went home. I'm like, well, everybody, hey, say hi to Cotter for me. I'll talk to you guys later. I come home and it's like, oh, this isn't good. But that's kind of the, again, it wasn't anybody's fault per se. I didn't know the floor wasn't going to, I didn't weigh enough to crush the cuffs. Right. So for me, it was like landing on a trampoline. And it's in the film. Like I say, I watch it every now and then, and it's like, oh, tough to watch.
That's amazing. And I know the shock absorber is supposed to help you, save yourself from taking a hell of a beating.
Yeah, I mean, and even just as much as anything, it was there to help you not blow out your back, because you think about it, you're falling quite a distance. If you just fell, right, 8-9 feet onto solid concrete, and also we were so close to each other because we were falling through a fairly small hole in the ceiling. Yeah. To land like that, and land on your heels, that's going to send that right through your spine. And so that's what it was all about, and almost worked. Almost.
Yeah, it almost did. Man, you've been in so many iconic things, and you mentioned Predator 2.
Predator 2.
I know that you actually were a gang member in Predator 2, because I actually watched the movie earlier today to find the scenes where you were in, because I saw the stills earlier. Like, wow, yeah, there he is with the
that was, for me, that was probably the best week of my life. At that point, I always wanted to be an actor in films. I did a lot of theater, did a lot of that stuff, but now I was getting a chance to actually speak, and people were going to be able to see me. There was, in a stunt, if anybody recognizes it's me, somebody did their job poorly, right, because you should never know it's me. No. But here I am, with my little acting part. And I remember walking into the 20th Century Fox lot, and there's a big brass plate as you walk through the door of this particular soundstage that says, Wizard of Oz was filmed on this soundstage in 1932. Wow. You're like, this is hallowed ground. Yeah. This is amazing. And it's the biggest set I've ever seen. The whole Predator ship was in there, was off to this side, and over here is the subway area where we're going to do our scene, and there was offices over there. So there's this massive place. Hey, there I am.
Hey, there you are.
God, I was young and sweaty, to be young and sweaty.
Love it.
And so I get there, and I don't know if there's what we call the Bill Paxton story, and I'll have to tell it to you quick because it's my favorite moment.
I want to hear it. Absolutely.
So I get there one day, and I'm dressed like you just saw, and I sit down in this chair and just kind of John with another guy, and Bill Paxton walks up, and I knew who he was, big deal. And I was like, oh, hey, how are you? And he goes, is your name Bill? And I said, yeah. He goes, is it really? And I said, yeah. And he goes, you're in my chair. And I look back, and it's a director's chair, and it's got Bill written right there. I'm so sorry. He goes, no, sit down. He says, what are you doing here? And I said, nothing. It's a little bit thing. He goes, are you one of the gang members? I'm like, clearly, I'm so street, Yes. It's just, he goes, did you ever see Terminator? I was like, of course we all saw Terminator. Who didn't see Terminator? Right. And he goes, that scene, the opening scene where he walks up naked, and there's the couple of guys there, and they're like, nothing clean, laundry day, because he's naked, and then he wants their clothes. He goes, that was my first real shot at anything that anybody recognized me for. And I said, that's very cool. He goes, today's that day for you. I said, oh. He goes, so relax. Have the best time today. You only get this day one time. This is your first time in a major feature. You're going to be 60 feet across in a movie theater someplace, and it's going to be you this time. And this is that day for you. This is the day when your career changes, because now all of a sudden people see you and they recognize you. Right. So don't let this day go too fast. Relax. Do your best work. Really, really try to just let it happen and do it, just everybody work with the people around you and enjoy it because you only get this day once.
Right.
And it was like, he didn't have to do that. You know, he didn't have to be that nice to me. I was just some schmuck guy who was doing a bit part in this big movie. And I just remember when the time came, I mean, I could just picture it now. I remember them saying, okay, can we bring the gang leader in? And I go in and I'm looking at all the cameras, and it was everything I ever wanted in life from the time I was 5 years old. I got a big old, Panaflex camera staring me down, and there's all these people and movie stuff and actors and lights and special effects and all this stuff. Yeah. And I got to do the thing that I wanted to do since I was a kid. You know, I'd done some other movies, but I never got to be that guy that got the lines. They got to be actually recognizable on screen. And so that day, I just remember thinking, this is what I wanted. And it's everything I wanted it to be. There was no letdown. There was no, gosh, it wasn't as good as I hoped it might be. No. So much better. And awesome. Just a funny thing about it, I'm dressed like that. I finished my first day and I go over to get some lunch, and I see an old boss of mine who thought I was just a joke for wanting to be an actor. And he was working there. He'd changed jobs as well. And he goes, "What are you doing here?" I said, "I'm an actor." And he goes, "Oh my gosh, you're working on that movie." And I said, "Yeah." And he goes, "Hey, congratulations." And it was like, yeah. All you people who didn't believe in me, all you people who didn't know I did. So it was just the best, like the best day ever. And then to be able to sort of rub the nose of my old boss in my success. Oh, petty, but so satisfying.
That's awesome.
So that's the Bill Paxton story. The nicest guy you'd ever want to meet. Cool. And all he wanted to do was make sure that everybody on set did their best work. You know, just generous and kind and patient. Just, I mean, how much better could that be? Ready for more pictures. No nudes this time. No nudes.
Oh, no. Well, thank you for the shirt. I like my colorful shirts. I always do them.
See, is that the, what is the name of that show, that painting? Is that
the Starry Night thing?
Yeah, Starry Night. Thank you.
It is, but it also has a Bigfoot on the back. It's like a Bigfoot Starry Night. Hey, you know what? Temu special. Sometimes these are really funny shirts. Sometimes you can
you know, a good shirt's a good shirt, no matter where it came from.
So
and you were just showing tape heads.
Oh, tape heads.
I saw they showed the poster for a moment there. Another weird one. So there's a kid. There's another. They're making a music video, and there's a very famous rock star at the time, a guy named Stiv Bader, and they said, "You're going to be Stiv's stunt double." I'm like, okay. I go over and I talk to Stiv, and he's got a big scar, like a big X in his chest, and I go, "Oh my God, how'd you get that?" He goes, "Oh, I was on stage singing, and a girl came up with a knife, and she just carved it in my chest."
What the?
Oh, fun. And he's as hairless as one of those cats, you know, those creepy looking cats. Yeah. He has no body hair at all. He's got long black hair, but no arm hair, no chest hair. You know, there we go. Now, I am basically simian. You talk about cryptids. I had a tail when I was born. My mom had a dog. I'm a hairy man. Now, that picture doesn't show it so much because I had to shave all down on that. So that is me with a little bit of razor burn because I'm as hairy as a chimp. And so I had to shave all that off so that I could match Stiv. And so that's one of those things people go, well, you know, that's no big deal. It's like, yeah, you ever have all that hair grow back? I look like a cacti with just little nubbies and like forever to grow back.
The itching would probably be just as hard.
Oh, it's just brutal. I'm just like living in calamine lotion and, you know, anti-itch cream. And that happened a lot because I would sometimes, I'd sometimes double women. Doubled a woman named Lori Petty. She was in like Tank Girl and Point Break and things. I made a good double for her. She's very thin. She and I share a B cup. So sometimes it was just, they would say, okay, you're going to be doubling a girl. It's like, well, let's just get out the clippers and we'll just, yes, prickly and itchy.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you, so all the stunts from all the movies that you worked on, what was the scariest stunt that you had to do that really like
Yeah.
disturbed you a little bit? Saying,
There's a movie, well, not a horror film, but a movie called License to Drive.
Yep.
With Corey Haim, Corey Feldman, and I worked with them on Lost Boys as well. And there's a scene at the very opening of the movie where Corey Haim is having this nightmare that he's trapped in a school bus and he can't get out. And so he breaks the chains that hold him in, and he goes diving through the rear window of the bus. And I had to, since we're driving, as this is all happening, I have to land on a follow vehicle. And that was no fun. Lies. I don't believe that you stay out of trouble. My reputation precedes me. So I end up having to go out through this window, and then I have to do a flip in the air and then land on this follow vehicle. And there's a camera over here, and a camera underneath me. So I have to avoid all the cameras, not hit my feet as I go out the window, because that will actually make me fall straight down and get run over by the follow vehicle. Safety tip there. Don't get run over by the follow vehicle. And we had to do it a couple of times. And I remember after I did it, I was, the first time I went through, I'm going through like this, and a big piece of glass stuck right in this big old gnarly vein that I got right there. And the glass is resin, but it's still very sharp. It's just really brittle. And so I get through the window, and one of my best friends since I was a kid, a guy named Lee Waddell, who was Ghostface in Scream.
Okay.
There's a little handy little fun fact. Anyway, he actually happened to also be an emergency medical technician, which was a good skill to have if you want to be on the set a lot. And he looks at me and he goes, "You know, you're bleeding a lot." I'm going, "Oh my gosh, am I getting it on the outfit?" Like that was the most important thing at that moment.
Right.
And so he goes into this little kit he used to carry, and he gets some crazy glue, and he yanks the piece of glass out, puts a little crazy glue in there, holds it shut for a second. All right, going again. See you in a minute. And out we go again. But I thought to myself, I cannot believe I just did that. I mean, I remember thinking this could easily have killed me. No, it's not sugar glass. Sugar glass they used a long time ago. Sugar glass, the problem with sugar glass is you can't see through it very well. It's very blurry, kind of wavy. So it's fine for old Westerns when glass wasn't particularly high quality. But if you're going to try to shoot through glass, they'll use like a resin. And usually it's pretty thin unless it has to be really sturdy. Because like I said, it's so brittle. If you just tap on it, it's going to break. So they have to make, pretty good thick pieces if you really want to be able to, hit it with any force. And I just, when they got done doing the stunt for the second time, the stunt coordinator says to me, "How much do you want?" And you get something they call a stunt adjustment, which means you get paid, say, $1,000 for the day just to be there,
right?
Whether you do anything or not. And then they'll give you a stunt adjustment, which goes into your daily rate. And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, you could have died. This is a dumb job sometimes. You really could have gotten hurt. I mean, mangled for sure. I'm like, $500? He goes, $500? Is your life worth $500? I'm like, I guess. I don't know. And he goes, "It's $2,500. I'm like, oh. He goes, "Each." I'm like, well, yes, of course it is. It's like, hey, there's money to be made here. Absolutely. But in the moment, thinking about it, I remember thinking that was really, really tight. I mean, that could have really hurt. And I think just, being 26 years old, 27 years old at the time, you're indestructible. You don't think about death and destruction. In that moment, I did. That really could have been it. That would have been bad. That could have gone very poorly. And, but that was the one where afterward I was like, okay, I'm proud of that one. That was a pretty good piece of work there. And they showed it from, all three different angles and flying through the air and all that. And it's, again, the opening, one of the sort of opening iconic stunts of the film. So, when you feel like you did something that somebody else is going to watch one day as like one of their favorite parts,
So Yeah, with all of the stunt work that you've done and all of the franchises that you worked with, whether it was Lost Boys or whether it was the Nightmare series or Monster Squad or even doing TV stunt double or work with like the Wonder Years and Star Trek. Obviously, I did my research before we even came on.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Anything else I was in that I might not remember?
Well, I don't think so. You definitely know more than I do. But what was there a franchise that you wish you could have got into but didn't get a chance to get into?
Ooh, that's a good question. Because there is, franchise crazy out there.
Or even
it's funny.
You wanted to, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, I would say, is probably one of the best ones to be in. But I didn't know it at the time because at the time you're just happy to work. You're just happy to have something to do this month. I would say I was pretty lucky, and I say lucky, not like it's a luck thing, but I worked about once or twice a month. Once maybe that's a couple days here, a couple days here in a month, and people go, "That's it?" It's like that's why you have to make so much money when you do it, because that may be all you get this month. And I knew a lot of guys, working, throwing dog food, at Vaughn's, to make ends meet. I was working pretty frequently, but I think, gosh, I'm trying to think of the other franchises that I wasn't in. The Friday the 13th, the Jason movies. The first one was the first horror movie to me that really scared the living piss out of me. Right. Kevin Bacon getting it in the lying in bed from the arrow coming through. That was the most graphic, crazy thing I'd seen in a movie at that time. I had never seen the Texas Chainsaw Massacre or any of that stuff. So this was my first really badass, scary. And when I look at them now, I think, oh my gosh, how much fun would that be to have been part of?
Right.
But I know that looking back on it now, it's easy to look back on it now and go, yeah, that would have been great. At the time, any one of those films was just, any work at all was good. Awesome. I think, I'm a bit of a sci-fi fan. I would have loved to have done something in the Jurassic Park movies. Again, my buddy Lee was in Jurassic Park 2, and he gets torn apart by two tyrannosaurs. I'm like, that's so cool. You got torn in half by two tyrannosaurs. Most of us never have the fortune to be torn apart by one tyrannosaur. And I just think about those movies that meant something to me. Like the Jaws franchise, the first one, of course, mind blowing anniversary, I think this week. That's one of those ones where the franchise was never going to be as good as, okay, now I know. Alien. Would have loved to have been in any one of the first 3 or 4 Alien films, the Sigourney Weaver ones for sure. Yes. Just
classics.
I don't know. There's not a lot of perfect films in my mind. Jaws is one, and Aliens, the second one, is as close to a perfect film as I could imagine a film being. Hard to say, but that's another one. Yeah. And I would love to be in the club where I got killed by an alien and a predator and, Freddy Krueger. That's a small club.
So I had a question from Christy Parrish. She said, did you have a dream? There it is. What is your dream role?
Oh, dream role. Gosh, I think about it. There was a movie called Glory that came out probably late 80s, early 90s with Matthew Broderick and Denzel Washington, Morgan Freeman.
Civil War, I think, right?
I'm sorry?
Wasn't it like a Civil War based kind of?
Yes. Yeah. And I remember seeing that film. And of course, there was a great bunch of stunts and fighting and all that other stuff. But the thing was, I watched that movie. It was a story I'd never heard. And it really meant something. The movie was just moving. And it was kind of one of the contemporary films while I was still working that I thought that's the kind of film I would love to be in, where it's not just, memorable. It's, it changed my opinion about the world, changed my opinion about a particular part of our history that I just didn't know about at the time. And I kind of looked at those roles and said, yeah, that would really be nice to be in a film where when you watch it later, it's like something shown in schools. Something where they go, this is a story. This is, a story based on true events. And this is a piece of history that you should know as an American citizen or whatever it is. So, those kind of things. I auditioned for Full Metal Jacket with Stanley Kubrick.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm Matthew Modine's sitting here. Sean Penn is here. Tom Cruise is over there. And I'm like, what am I doing in this room? Why am I here? I was so intimidated. I couldn't even believe it. And I'm sure I did one of the worst auditions of my life just from sheer intimidation. But that's another one where, it's one of those films, just a classic, and it's Kubrick, for God's sake. How much, even if you didn't like it, you're like, yeah, but Kubrick, it's pretty cool.
Agreed.
Yeah. So, that's the kind of stuff. I did audition for a lot of stuff, but I was just too damn short. I'm 5'6", barely, 120 pounds at the time. That's tiny. Yeah. And my agent would say, you're too good looking to be this short. And what she meant was that if you were going to be the young leading man face, you needed to be 5'10", because that's where all the girls were, 5'9", 5'8" to 5'10", and you're just not going to look good standing next to them. And they say, yeah, you could put them on an apple box, and yeah, they'll do that for Tom Cruise. Not so much. So a lot of what I was trying to do out there. I was trying to get roles that they just were never going to give me, just because, they look for a particular type. Why wouldn't they just hire a guy who's taller?
Yeah.
Because there's a million guys out there and they can always find somebody. And so you were great, but he's taller. Bye-bye.
So Nature's had a really good question too, popped up. There is. What's the hardest role you decided to take on?
Hardest. Well, it sounds like a plug, but I wrote a couple of books. One of them is going to be a film, and relatively soon. And it's probably, for me, the most challenging role because I wrote it. And but it's a very, very dark. Like, if you guys have seen Obsession, it's got a lot of, I don't want to say similarities, but it's that same intensity where it just starts at 9 and it gets to 10 and it never stops. Wow. And that's kind of what this is. And so there's just some very, very intense acting that you just don't get a chance to. There's no scene that isn't gut wrenching from the very beginning. And I think that's, for me, the idea of taking on something that's, it's putting you through something. Right. When people read the book, they're like, I stopped at page 24. And I was like, I know why. And they're like, I didn't read it for 3 more days because it just freaked me out. And I was kind of disturbed. I'm like, well, you're welcome. I'm glad I had a chance to traumatize you, because it means that it was good enough. You cared enough about the people that you were reading about that it actually affected you in some way. But yeah, I never really got a chance in film to do the kind of stuff I wanted to do. When I was doing theater, I got to play the Elephant Man, which was probably one of my more demanding kind of roles. But yeah, it was just kind of one of those things I never really got to do on film what I would love to do. I mean, there's plenty of dream roles out there. Right. But I never really, since I didn't have a shot at them, I can't say, oh, I really wanted that role. It's like, yeah, I didn't get it. I wasn't even up for it. So it's like, yeah, I wanted to marry Charlize Theron, but she said no. No, she never even said hello to me. So never met her. So I guess I really can't say I missed out on marrying her because she doesn't know I exist.
That's amazing. You know what? Shift gears for a second. I actually wrote down some stuff about your books. And I wanted to talk to you about your books for a little bit. The first one is called By His Hand. Is that what it was? What was the inspiration for that book? It's crazy. My wife's a psychologist. So we were walking the dogs one morning and I said, man, did I just have the most twisted, gnarly dream? And she goes, what was it? And I got about 3 sentences out. She goes, I don't want to hear any more. And I said, really? She goes, it's really disturbing. I said, yeah, I know. And so I went back in the house and I wrote down as much as I could remember the dream, because it played like a movie, first frame to the end. I mean, like practically credits at the end of the damn thing. And I wrote the story down
And I called a publisher that I work with. I do audiobooks for Audible for him. And I said, I have the craziest story. And I gave him the synopsis of it. And he said, you should write that. And I said, I'm not really a writer. And he goes, try. Okay. So I spent about 3 weeks writing very, very dark stuff, very, very emotional stuff. And it's very personal because it's me in the story. And so when I finished it, I used the names of the people that actually exist in my world when I wrote it, but it was so traumatic to write it with thinking about these terrible things happening to people I know that as soon as I finished, I changed all the names. It was like, I don't ever have to think about this again. I've got it out of my system. And I sent it to the publisher and he goes, all right, well, let's publish it on the 17th. I'm like, you're going to publish it? Wow. Well, what did you think I was going to do? Oh, I kind of imagined you'd tell me I was a hack, tell me to cut off all my fingers and stay away from computers because I suck. And he goes, no, this is freaking crazy, twisted, cool. I'm like, oh, so you liked it? And he's like, yeah, where's the follow-up? I'm like, dude, I'm not going down that path again. Damn, dude. I mean, and so then he says, well, you got to do the audiobook. I'm like, yeah, I guess. I mean, you know, I do audiobooks and it might as well be me. So right. I do that. I write a sequel. I didn't want to write a sequel, but he says to me, well, you got to do a sequel. I said, you saw the way this thing ends. There's no way to move on from where this ends. And my best friend Lee says, what if? And he gives me the idea. Son of a bitch. Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah, it's writing itself in my head now. So I write the second one. And just recently, we were talking to a person we know, a gal named Catherine Corcoran, who was in the Terrifier. And she started her own production. Yep. Yeah, I have not seen it. I got to say, it's too nasty for me. Too gnarly. Can't watch people get sawed. No, not my thing. Yeah, nasty stuff. So anyway, so she read it and said, hey, I want this to be the first movie we make with my new production company. And so this, but to answer your question sort of in full, this little dream, this nightmare I had, one morning, 3+ years ago, turns into a screenplay and 2 books. And actually the sequel is also a screenplay now. And we're talking about filming them back to back just because it's a lot cheaper to go that way. Right. And I'm seeing all these films now, like Obsession and all these other things that are these low budget films that are just really high concept. It's not about the special effects. It's about the performances. And so the challenge of this, taking this book into a film is massive, but so awesome. I so want this to happen. I wish it was happening today. I would, it's like all I can think about, but yeah, it just started off as a nightmare. And yeah, I just figured when I started writing, if I'm going to write and it's going to be horror, which I say I don't like, but I guess I must, I'm going to go dark. I'm going to go under the bed, moon, no moon that night, dark, absolutely as dark as I can go. And I would think of these situations and say, how could I make that more effed up? What could I do that would just cross a line where people would be like, oh, dude, come on, man, don't, how do you even think that way? What is wrong with you? And I love that reaction. I love to know that somebody read it and went, oh. And so people will write from time to time, or I'll see a review on Amazon and somebody will say, I thought you were funny. Now I think you're funny. Not in a ha-ha way. I'm not eating with you anymore. And but I love the idea that something I wrote, your show is called Twisted Tales. This is definitely very Twisted Tales. Of course. And I love that I created a character for you that meant something to you. Because I worked for Wes Craven. I don't know if you saw in the bio that I was Wes Craven's web developer for a few years. And I would talk to Wes about story writing. And he would say, if you don't care about the characters, it doesn't matter what happens to them. And so he said, if you want if somebody's going to get killed in a film or in a story or whatever, if people don't care who they are and they're just utterly despicable and unlikable, doesn't matter if they get killed. And all then it is, it's just an excuse. You know, you're writing people for the purpose of killing them. And that's not great writing. And I remember that when I was writing it, I would think to myself, these people have to be real enough and human enough. And even if you don't like them, God, I certainly didn't want to see that happen to them, you know, kind of thing. Even unlikable characters, you have to have some sort of feeling for them, some sort of sympathy for their humanity, if nothing else, so that when something horrible happens, you can still feel a little bit of gratitude that they're, you know, not doing the terrible things they were doing, but it still has to mean something when they, you know, whenever something bad happens to them. And so I'm really very conscious of that when I write, is these people have to matter, you know. And one of the few critiques I got, somebody said, it seems like you created this person just as a group. They're all the same person. And I thought, oh, that's funny, because I know these people and I don't have to tell myself that Jerry's a big, tall guy who's full of, you know, irritating opinions and will never shut his mouth. I know that about Jerry, but I hadn't said so in the script or in my writing. I was like, okay, I got to go back and rewrite Jerry, because nobody knows Jerry like I know Jerry. And since you don't know him, I have to tell you who he is better. But it was just me writing from my kind of stream of consciousness. Everybody knows Jerry's a dick. No, they don't actually. you have to show them that Jerry is a dick. But awesome. Writing's really fun for that purpose. You know, just to say, I mean, I remember I was for the second one, there's a really gnarly scene that happens in a hospital, and I wanted to make sure it was accurate. So I have to do my research, and I'm talking to nurses and go, what's the gnarliest thing you ever saw happen accidentally in a hospital? So I'm doing this. And so these people are telling me these gnarly stories, just gut wrenching, twisted, horrible things. I'm like, I like that. I'm going to use a piece of that. I love that. And so for all my distaste, as I claim to have for horror, when I get into it, oh yeah, I want to be the gnarliest. I want to be the person where you're like, I'm not reading another word. I'll wait for the movie. You know,
that's awesome. So the first book is By His Hand, and the second one is Out of His Mind.
Yeah, and the second one is the sequel. And to me, yeah, we talked about Alien and Aliens. When I saw Alien, I thought it was probably one of the best films ever. When Aliens came out, I loved it even more, because it took everything that was scary, everything that was great about the first film, but it amplified it. You know, it wasn't just one alien. Oh shit, there's 200, 300 of these things. And even though you've got all the weapons in the world, you're not ready for this. And so it just got bigger and bigger. And so when I decided to write the second book, I said, if I'm going to write the second book, it's going to have to be amped up. Everything that was scary, everything that was twisted. Oh yeah, I got to go way bigger. So when people read the second one, they're like, yeah, dude, that's unwatchably disturbing. Not because you see it, but because the picture it paints in your mind. I don't want to give a scene away, but there's a moment where the terror is not from the person being hurt. It's from who they are and who the person is that's with them, the relationship between these two people. And so it's not that you see a, you know, spear through the head or something like that. That's not scary to me. That's special effects. What's scary to me is the relationship between these two people and how that person has to look that other person in the eye while all this is happening.
Wow.
That to me is the part where that's where on page 24, where people go, dude, God, you seem like a good person. Yeah, I seem like it, but we've all got our dark places.
It's amazing that you've got your hands on that. You've done all the stunt work that you had going on, and you also narrate audiobooks. So in my mind, I had a question that's totally off the cuff. If you had the opportunity to narrate one book, one timeless classic that you were actually allowed to do the narration for, what book would it be?
The Stand.
Ooh.
Stephen King's The Stand. Probably my favorite book ever. It goes in 1,000 different directions, captivated the whole way. I think I read the 1,200 page version of that book in a weekend, because you're reading this book. If you haven't read it, it's possibly one of the greatest pieces of horror or just writing. I mean, geez, it's so good. There's all these different characters from all these different outlooks, and you get to the end of it and you're like, okay, it's 2 a.m. I'm freaking tired. I'm not going to read anymore. I'm done. Okay. And then you look at the next page like, oh, wait, we go back to him? Oh, shit. You continue because you care so deeply for these characters. You have to know what happens to them. And they're wonderful. They're just, it's just such great writing. And I saw somebody said, yeah, they've made a series out of it. They've tried to make them versions of it a couple of times, but I just don't know that you can. Stephen King's writing.
It fell flat. It did fall flat.
Yeah. And Stephen King is just so good. One of the first, I have to say, a very mind-blowing thing somebody said about my writing, and they meant it as a compliment, which is a nice thing. They said the Stephen King influences in Bill's writing are clear, but not in a plagiaristic way. And what they were talking about is my ability in the words that I'm using to give you short bursts of description that really help you to know somebody and what they're like. And that's possibly the greatest compliment I could get, to being even saying Stephen King in the same breath. And I really feel like when I write, I really want that. I want to have an economy of words, which I clearly don't have in speaking. But I want to be able to craft those words so that you get what you need to get out of it. And reading audiobooks has been a real boon, because I'm in a series of books. I just finished one yesterday called it's the A to Z of Horror. And it's a series of books by this publisher in England. And it's 13 stories about a particular theme. M is for medical. So I just read 14 just gnarly stories. So good, from all over the world, different writers from all over the planet, and all with a particular theme in mind. They've got, C is for cannibals, D is for demons, E is for exorcism, G is for genies. And I'll be starting the next one coming up soon. And it's just wonderful writing. And I think by reading so many other people's stories, I got a sense of pace, how to keep a story moving along. Don't give them too much. Keep, keep getting to the point. And I really love doing it. The exorcism one was kind of funny because it's how many demon voices does one person own? So I'm like, I can only do so much of this. My throat's getting sore. So you have all these different demonic voices you have to imagine. Right. And it's a fun exercise, because it's like if each of these stories is like an hour, you have a 1 hour cold reading. Because I don't read the stories first. I want to be as surprised as the reader is, as the person who's listening. And so I just read it. And if I make a mistake, I make a mistake and I fix it. But it's really fun. Like I said, I never thought of myself as somebody that would get into horror stories, but there's 26 books and I'm only on 14. So I got a ways to go. But it's really fun. They're great books. They have them in print, of course, as well. But I really love doing the audio portion, because it's just a bite-sized piece of horror. If you were driving to work and you go, you know what? Mess with my mind for a bit. You go on and you bring up your Audible account or your, what you call it, Siri or something. Just go, hey, play this one. And you just get a really cool, mind-blowing story. It lasts, 30, 40 minutes to an hour. And so they're really fun to do. It's very satisfying to be able to be the voice of 26 books.
That's incredible. So I also saw that you do a lot of traveling to go to various conventions, sci-fi.
Yeah, this summer. In fact, if anybody, I don't, you said you're in Massachusetts, but I know you've got listeners all over. I'm going to be going to a show next month. It's a little bit less than a month away from now, in Lorton, Virginia. Place there. It's called Summerween. I heard you guys talking about the term Summerween, and I laughed. It's like, yeah, so I'm a summer weenie. Wait, don't say it that way. And then I'm doing one in Shreveport, Louisiana, something called GeekedCon.
Oh, cool.
And that one's going to be a hoot, only because the guy called me up to ask me to do the show. And he goes, "You have any other friends that do conventions?" And so I gave him all my friends, Felissa Rose, Lee Waddell, Alan Robinson, all these different guys, Brett Wagner. And so it's going to be all of us that not only did these movies together a long time ago, but we're all going to be at the same show.
That's awesome.
And they're doing what they call the Gathering of the Ghostface.
Nice.
I've got 3 friends that all happen to be Ghostface in one of the first 3 Scream movies.
Cool.
And so we're getting them and a couple of other Ghostfaces from, I think, 4 and 7. We're going to do the largest gathering of Ghostface. Like, we're going to get probably somewhere close to 1,000 people, all in Ghostface costumes, to come out for the Guinness Book of World Records.
That's cool.
So we're doing that. And it's just fun. It's like this. People come up and they want to say hi, and we talk for a little bit, and if I sign something, that's cool. I usually let them wear my Freddy glove for pictures, because I just think it's hilarious to watch somebody wear it, because they put it on and they're like, "You feel murderous, don't you?"
Yeah, I know. That's awesome.
I want to slash somebody. Can I do that? And it's just fun. It's nice people. Gwen was talking about, I had done a show for them down in Ozark, Alabama.
Yeah.
And I met just the nicest people, Latriana and all those folks. And it was just the nicest thing. People always ask, aren't these people weirdos? It's like, of course they are. But everybody needs their tribe,
Right.
And when I used to talk to Wes, I would say, "Aren't you afraid one of these people is going to come up and whack you one day?" And he said, "Bill, not everybody's had a great life. Not everybody has had a smooth, adolescence. Sometimes people have been through terrible, terrible things.
Mhm.
And these movies are an escape.
Yes.
They get to live through the trauma of Nancy, or they get to live through the trauma of Casey, or whoever these people are, and in the end they survive, and that for them is a bit of catharsis. They get to experience the trauma without actually being subjected to it.
That's amazing.
And he said that for them is a way to deal with what sometimes has been a very difficult life. I was like,
I agree.
"Oh, okay, I get that." Now, I didn't at the time. And so when I would go to these conventions, people come up that I've never met these folks, and they know me, somehow, or they feel like they do. And we get a chance to just, sit. I'm not such a huge demand movie star that I've got lines waiting for me. So I get a chance to really hang out with people. And when I was down in Alabama, they took me out for grits and catfish and all sorts of food that's just not on my normal menu
Right.
out here in California. And we just had the best time. Went out one night and we're, just drinking beers and hanging out. And people were like, "Gosh, you're so normal for a movie person." And it's like, I'm not uniquely different out here. I'm one of you guys. I'm a fan of these movies too.
Right.
But what I didn't see initially was the community. Particularly in the artistic side of things, the artwork you see at these conventions. I mean, the horror movies bring out a very interesting creative side in people. They're knitting Freddy Kruegers, they're, sculpting, and they're doing all these different things. And so I just love that. And then the community, one of the things, I'm a church going guy. And there was a thing I saw online. There was a girl who was well known at a lot of conventions, not as a guest, but just as an attendee and cosplayer. And she posted that she had cancer and that she wasn't going to be able to do any shows for a while because she was going to have to deal with that. And she was not going to be able to work for a while. And so she couldn't afford it. And overnight, $46,000 was raised for this woman just by people in the community of horror. Not that they knew her. 99% of those people probably never even heard of her, but she's one of our people.
Exactly.
And she's one of us, and we take care of our own. And like I said, I'm a church going guy. I've never seen anything like that happen at my church.
No.
Where just people just came out of the woodwork going, "Hey man, I'm a weirdo. She's a weirdo. We're all weirdos. We take care of our own little weird clan here."
Yep.
And it was so touching and so sort of life affirming. you know? And so when I come out to the shows and, you know, it's an interesting crowd. You got some guy who's a doctor yesterday, but today he's, Fred Pool. He's a combination of Freddy Krueger and Deadpool.
I've seen that one before. Yeah.
And that's this is how they get their freak on,
Right.
Normal life's not easy. If I want to dress up like some, mashup of 3 different weird, scary characters, that's my thing. And I'm going to do that. And I'm going to go have some fun. And that's all they're doing. They're not hurting anybody.
No.
And the folks that I met in Ozark in particular were just the most down home, natural, easy to talk to, so much fun. I told them, I said, when By His Hand gets made, I'm going to fly the entire cast down to that show, my expense. And we're going to do that show. And we're going to make so much money for their charities down there that we're just going to make it like, all of a sudden, we're going to put the Deep South Paracomic-Con on the map. And I said, it's one of the reasons I even want to make the movie. It's just so that we can have a successful movie and go, let's go make that one of the best cons, one of the best money-making cons for the actual promoter, because they give all the money to charity, for God's sake. And so it's that community that I really have latched onto, and has latched onto me even more than I could do for them. And it just, it's a very human, very fun thing to do the shows now. And I don't understand why anybody wants my signature. I'm just glad to meet them. It's how I make a few bucks to make it worth flying all the way to these places. But it's a kick. It's a real joy. Just love meeting all these people. Like I said, they took such good care of me. I probably gained 12 pounds in 3 days. But they're just good folks. They're just good folks. And, there's a lot of bullshit, excuse my French, that goes around in this world these days. I have difficulty sometimes remembering that some of the people I met down there, probably very different opinions about the way the country should be run. But what we really have in common, if nothing else, is this weird love for horror and fantasy films. And yeah, so for me, I think doing the shows is such a blessing. And I mean that word just from that term. I mean, in the very, sort of holy sense that this has been something handed to me late in life that was never a part of my plans or hopes or dreams. And to know that, like, a guy came up to me and I've seen him more than once now. Guy comes up to me and says, Nightmare on Elm Street movies saved my life. What? You're going to have to unspool that for me. And he said, I had cancer and we didn't know if I was going to make it. And I started watching the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. And there was always this girl. And she wasn't always the smartest or the fastest or the bravest, but she had this sense of survival, Right. And he said, I could be like her. I can have that sense of survival. And he said, so these movies saved my life. They gave me a sense of hope, of survival. So I'm just, like, wow, I was just some stunt guy in a stupid movie, but these movies meant so much to him. And then last year I see him in Kentucky and he introduces me to his family. He said, these kids and this wife would not exist if it weren't for you making these films with your friends down the row here. It's like, how do you not hear that and just feel like gold? Just there's just the solid gold. Like, dude, that was, of course, not my intent. I didn't know anything about, that these movies were going to mean anything to anybody. But when you find out that they did, and the stories you hear from people talking about, my dad took me to Nightmare on Elm Street 3 and we didn't tell my mom. And she was really, really mad, Yeah. And so we went out for big steak dinner. I was only like 14 and I was going to see my first R-rated movie. And we kept the secret from my mom forever. We never told her.
It's true.
And my dad and I had this new relationship after that night.
Yeah.
And it's like, in my mind, I got to be a little more humble. And I go, this had nothing to do with my movie, by the way. this was a different, but for him, like a favorite song that you have that you remember just listening to at a really difficult time in your life, these are touchstone moments for them, these films. Whatever the content of the film was, it doesn't matter, but it happens to be horror films and that happens to be their thing. And so they associate me and my friends that made these films as something pivotal and something very endearing, in their lives. And that's awesome. I mean, who knew, to me, if I'd known, I'd have probably, been more humble about it back then. But it was really, now when I do the conventions, I have such a good time. My wife's so glad to get rid of me. She's like, she needs quiet. I need voices. So I go to the show and I blab for 3 solid days. And she gets 3 days without me blabbing for 3 solid days.
That's fantastic. So, this has been a lovely, an awesome evening. And I know we got to wrap up. But I wanted to ask you the same final question that I always ask all of my guests. Your Mount Rushmore of horror characters.
Oh, now see, I tend to see the heroes, not the villains.
It's okay.
So, I would say, I would put Ripley up there.
Mm-hmm.
I would put Casey Becker, who doesn't make it, but, I would say, gosh, I got to get 2 more out of this at least. I'd say Jason Patrick, David from Lost Boys.
Yeah.
Because he kind of perseveres through that. Gosh, in horror, that's another tough one. I would, there's some of the final girls out there. I would have to go, Laurie Strode, got to put her up there.
There you go.
Because again, I always think of the villains. The villains are almost interchangeable sometimes, unless they're really, really distinct. But I look at, it's their counterpart, the person who can defeat them, even though, they're not invincible. They somehow, find a way through. I forget who I don't know her name at the moment, but the girl who was the final girl in the original Friday the 13th,
Right.
So those are kind of my Mount Rushmore, more the heroines and the survivors, because they had to put up with the all that stuff and then survive through it somehow.
I
Pretty
do
badass.
like the fact that you had a very good twist on it, because I said horror characters. It doesn't always necessarily have to be the villains. It can also any characters in horror movies and sci-fi are obviously they're part of the horror franchises. So
yeah, well, because you think about it, they don't have any lines for the most part. I mean, it's funny because all those guys that like Lee Waddell and Brett Wagner and all the guys that play Jason, they don't even have a line.
No,
they don't say a damn thing. You saw me, but you go see them. It's like they're not characters; they're suits, for God's sake. I was always, when Lee told me he first got into conventions, I'm like, who would know? They could put a mannequin out there, you lame piece of crap. That's just because I'm jealous.
Well, you know what? Thank you very much tonight.
My pleasure. This was a lot of fun.
It has been an honor and a privilege to have you on with me this evening.
And anybody out there that's watching this, if you have not mashed some sort of subscribe button, I'm going to come get you. I know where you live. And when you read my book, you'll find out what I'm capable of. Mash that subscribe button right now. I'll mess you up.
Thank you. So this has been William Perry. My name is Jeremy Cotter. This is Twisted Tales, All Access Network. Gwen, take us home. Thank you very much and have a great evening, folks.